and then we'll do some updates on events and then close. So can I pass over to you now, Katie? You ready?
Sure, thank you so much.
Lovely, thanks.
Am I okay to share my screen?
Yeah.
Lovely. So thanks very much for inviting me today. I'm the Climate Change Officer for Merton Council. And so over the last year or so, we've had some fairly good experience about thinking about how to reduce emissions in a whole range of circumstances. So I wanted to share some of that experience with you. And that's, I'm not a sort of expert on business, but what we've done is sort of gone through quite a similar thinking process. And I've also picked up on where in the action plan we've particularly made some suggestions in relation to business and emissions reduction. So I'll start by talking about the emissions in Merton in general and how they relate to business, having a think about how businesses might want to set a carbon target and how you then go about thinking about calculating those emissions. And then just running through some of the actions that we thought about when we were forming the climate strategy. And then there's a few bits of information at the end to which are a bit more general about how the council, some of the council's involvement in business support. Does that sound like it's the right pitch? Feel free to interrupt me if you want, if I'm going too fast, too slow, or saying information that you don't find relevant. It's happy for you to butt in if you want. So Merton set a climate strategy and action plan last year, and that was planned to meet the net zero targets that we made, which was 2050 for the borough and 2030 for the council. So it operates over a long time frame, and the idea is to set a kind of framework from which you can reduce emissions and get to net zero. So this slide, so when you go through this process, the first thing you have to do after you set a target is to work out what your emissions actually are. And we did this by hiring a consultant to do a greenhouse gas inventory on our behalf. But it is also possible to do that without a consultant if you don't have the finances. And I'll talk a bit about how you do that later. But what we found is in the borough as a whole is that businesses have quite a significant impact on the greenhouse gas emissions that you can measure in Merton. So the pale blue and yellow bars are the energy from businesses. The pale yellow is the electricity produced from businesses, and the pale blue is gas. And then it wasn't possible to separate out from the other emissions that we measured, like transport. It wasn't possible to separate out which was residential and which wasn't, because the data wasn't there. But I would say that private cars is probably the greatest impact, but larger vehicles like delivery vans and that sort of thing do have a disproportionately large impact, even though there's a lot less of them. And I just want to say that the greenhouse gas inventory that I showed you is absolutely not the whole story. So this inventory here is the 18% in this slide. So so there's a difference between the things that you can accurately estimate, which go in your emissions inventory, and there's things that you can't accurately estimate. And we made a really concerted effort to have a think about those. And that's the difference between direct emissions and emissions from the consumption of goods and services. So the big 82% there is what we estimated the emissions might be from the consumption of goods and services. And the reason why that's really difficult to estimate is because the emissions happen elsewhere. So when you make the products, the emissions happen outside Merton, if you see what I mean. But those emissions could well be 4 times as big as what you can directly measure within your sort of what's in your direct control. And those emissions were based on assumed consumption of things like food, car manufacture, clothing and textiles, aviation, so flights that are taken by Merton residents and businesses, construction. So it's not the energy use in the building, it's actually the materials and the energy used in the actual construction of the buildings, and also IT equipment. And there's a really huge scope to reduce those emissions, but obviously because they happen outside the borough, it's much harder to do that. But what I would say is businesses are in an absolutely unique position to help with those, because they're the segue into those. So they can potentially influence the supply chain emissions. So when you think about goods or services that you provide within Merton, you can influence that supply chain, and you can offer more sustainable products or services within Merton, and be able to advertise that and get a kind of clientele that will want to buy those sorts of services. So I would say that businesses have a really massively important role to play in those emissions. And yeah, stop there. I've got loads to say, so I'm worried that I'm going to run out of time. I would love to know, when we have the roundtable, I'd love to know how many businesses have actually set carbon targets. And if you haven't, I would highly recommend doing that, because you really get a great, you get to think systematically about what your carbon emissions are and can work towards a specific goal. So for us, it's been very helpful, and you can also publicize that, and it will help other people to understand what your climate change aims are. So this is a sort of general process. I've taken this, there are loads of great tools around which advise on how to set carbon targets and do that sort of thing. I've made this one up, but the next slide, a lot of this information is taken from the greenhouse gas protocol, which I've got a link in the one of the slides for. So so there's a sort of some decisions you need to make if you set net zero targets, and that is what is the target, whether it's an absolute target or whether you want to have a net zero target, and then you need to think about what the scope of those is, that the emissions that you're going to count are, and I'll talk a bit about that in a minute. And you also think of, and then you need to sort of establish a baseline, because you need to measure progress against where you've started from, otherwise you don't know whether you can reach it. And so that involves an element of monitoring and measuring and reporting. So obviously the key part of this is actually understanding what your greenhouse gas emissions are in the first place. And again, as I said, this was taken from a website called the Greenhouse Gas Protocol. And it's a sort of standard process that everyone has to go through if they need to think about emissions. And so it's really about taking a thorough, rigorous kind of process where you identify all of the potential sources of emissions. When I'm talking about emissions, I'm talking about greenhouse gas emissions, so things like carbon and methane. I'm not talking about air pollution emissions. you have to work out how you then calculate what the greenhouse gas emissions are. And again, there are a good number of tools in development, and some of them are free that can help you do that. But you need to read into it a bit. You can't do it from no knowledge, but you don't necessarily need to hire an expensive consultant to have a good idea about what your emissions are. And then you can use those sorts of calculation tools to make up your inventory, and then you've got a good basis for taking action. And again, this was taken from the Greenhouse Gas Protocol documentation. And one of the most fundamental things you need to do is work out how to put your arms around what emissions you're going to count in your inventory and what emissions you're going to exclude. And the idea of this is to help you choose. And when you look at greenhouse gas inventories, they always talk in terms of scope 1, 2, and 3. And it sounds really technical and confusing, but actually it's quite simple. So scope 1 is just emissions that physically come off your buildings or operations. So if you have an office and you have a gas boiler and it burns your methane and it generates carbon dioxide as part of that process, it's the carbon dioxide from the boiler that you're measuring in scope 1. And if you have a car that's used for business and it's a diesel car, it's the greenhouse gas emissions associated with using that diesel up when you drive the car. So that's scope 1 emissions. Scope 2 is the electricity, the emissions associated with the use of electricity as part of your business. And there's a carbon factor that you can just look up on the internet. So Bayes has loads of carbon factors of all sorts of different things. So you basically, all you need to know is how much energy you use, and you can get that from a smart meter or something like that. And then scope 3 is a bit of a nightmare because that's absolutely everything else. And those are the sort of second order impacts. So they're sort of the less direct impacts of emissions that a business could have. So that is things like the supply chain emissions that I was talking about earlier. So if you buy products to sell and they have a high greenhouse gas impact, that could potentially be included in scope 3. If your staff travel to work by car instead of by bike, that would be included in scope 3. So once you can, and also, importantly, also the sort of how you deal with your waste is also in scope 3. And those are often much harder to measure, but my experience has been that you can understand kind of an order of magnitude of importance, even if you can't neatly incorporate all of scope 3 into your workings. You can still understand that some things are more important than others. So once you have set your target and you have gone through and made some sort of estimate of the greenhouse gas emissions as part of your business, you're in a really good position then to identify the right sorts of actions to effectively reduce emissions within your business. And I've run out of time, haven't I, Ellie?
How many more slides have you got, Katie? Because it's really important, I think, to carry on, I think.
Yeah, so I was just going to make reference to the main actions in Merton's climate strategy that have an impact on business.
Yeah, let's carry on, if that's it. Yeah, we've got time, it's fine.
Thank you. I'm very grateful.
No, thank you.
So, So when we were setting the climate strategy, we tried to think of all of the major actions that if we did all of them as a borough, we get to net zero. So they're very high level and they run over a 30-year time frame. But the sort of major chunks are there. So they won't be specific to your business. So you might think, oh, this doesn't apply to me. And that's fine because what we were trying to get was something general that made people start thinking about how to reduce the emissions in their own business. But I'll go through some of them which might be helpful to you. So and these run in categories. So we started by looking at the green economy, and those are usually the emissions that you can't measure because they're the consumption emissions or emissions linked to the processing of waste. So what we said in the climate strategy was, as I said, just really wanting to highlight what a brilliant, unique position business can be in promoting the principles of the circular economy, influencing the supply chain so that we can get lower emissions on things like the products, transportation, services. So when you procure goods and services on behalf of your clientele, if you in turn are asking whether your suppliers have a carbon target or whether they're looking to reduce emissions and ask information about their greenhouse gas impacts, it kind of has a knock-on effect. And so one of the things that we as the council are doing, we decided to include procured services in our greenhouse gas inventory, and we are looking at developing procurement policies that will start to progressively tighten the requirements on greenhouse gas emissions from our procured services. So that's an example. And then business also has this public facing element where you can promote sustainable products and offer those and be clear in your promotional activities or your business branding, what your philosophy is in relation to greenhouse gas emissions. And the other important thing is waste. So generally speaking, commercial and industrial waste has a higher greenhouse gas impact than domestic waste, and that's because of you get to choose what waste collection service you go for, and so it would be great to see as many businesses as possible really trying to prevent and recycle and reuse it as much as possible, because again that has basically applying the principles of the circular economy is very consistent with reducing emissions. Energy use always has a significant impact on greenhouse gas emissions. So that really should be part of any strategy to get to anywhere close to net zero. And that's really about firstly understanding what the energy use is. And as I said, it's fairly simple because you can get a smart meter and look at the kilowatt hours of electricity that you use, or you can look on your gas meter. And then you can start working out ways to reduce that. And some of those are quite cost effective. So things like replacing old lighting with LEDs is cost effective and will pay back. And others will require more significant investment. And then I won't go into new developments. I'll skip over this, but just to say that if new development is part of your business model, it's so much cheaper to build in low carbon ready buildings than it is to add them on later. So as a council, we're really trying to make sure that new developments are both allow an operationally zero carbon building for the building to be kind of future proof, to be zero carbon in the future without any significant retrofit. And also bearing in mind things like overheating and flooding, which will become more prominent as the climate changes. And then on transport, we're really talking about any form of petrol and diesel transports that you can influence or directly change into walking or cycling. If it's deliveries, then you might want to think about the extent to which you can use cargo bikes, for example, the extent to which you can encourage your staff to walk or cycle. So can you invest in a cycle parking and a shower or something like that? And also you can potentially, as I said, influence your supply chain deliveries. So can you consolidate your deliveries or ask that they be delivered in an electric vehicle? And then finally, greening. I mean, we know that office space is often quite tight when it comes to greening, but it's great to see things like green walls and roofs on office buildings. There might be areas that can be depaved. And if not, it's always possible as a business to invest in community planting. So there's lots of initiatives going on in Merton that you could potentially help with. So you could have a work day out where you're doing some planting, or you could be sponsoring a local group to do low carbon activities. So finally, just wanted to point out a couple of things that Merton Council are involved with. So we have a good level of business support grants at the moment. So please visit the website, and those will, I think there's a new one being added quite soon. So please keep an eye on that, the website that I've got up there, if you're looking for. So the new one that's being added hopefully soon is to try and open up some of the pavements. So things like investing in parklets and stuff like that. And then there are some basic grants around COVID recovery as well. Towards Employment is a programme to get 18 to 24-year-olds into work. And so as a business, if you wanted to give people opportunities to for young people, to offer them placements, get in touch with the Towards Employment programme, because they're doing some amazing work. And finally, the Climate Action Group. So Diana mentioned that she's the community lead for the Greening Energy theme, but please feel free to get involved if there's anything you think that you can either help with or need help with from the community. That's it. Thank you very much.
Good. Thank you so much, Katie. That was really helpful and informative. Can I grab the slides off you and share them with the participants after this meeting?
Yes, feel free.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I think we'll move on now. Oh, sorry, Dusty, sorry. No? See anything? Okay. So what we'll do is then we'll move on to just a kind of a round the table discussion, just to kind of share with each other kind of how we've been doing on our journeys, what's been difficult, what we've succeeded in, just so we can, like I said before, better support you. So does anyone want to kind of share what's going on with them in their business or the company they work for?
Oh, there we are.
I'll start if you want, Ellie.
Thank you.
So centre courts, first of all, 2020 was really successful for us in terms of our strategies. We focused in 2020 on waste, and that has proved really successful. We increased our recycling from 32% in 2019 to 57% in 2020. Some of that was COVID, so I think we got a bit of a boost because of some of the tenants that closed down, particularly McDonald's, so food waste being the most difficult to manage. But our internal target was 50%, so to achieve 57 we're really pleased with. So that ended 2020 quite well. We've recently been sold, so the owners of the shopping centre sold to a new owner, a company called Romulus, as of March. And Romulus have come in with a huge amount of energy for sustainability. So we've got lots and lots of things that perhaps weren't picked up as strongly with the previous landlord. So we're talking to Tesla and BP Pulse about installing a significant amount of EV charging into the car park. Those conversations have started with a lot of energy, so I'm optimistic that something quite significant will come out of that. The new owner has kind of procurement. Historically, it's always been quite difficult for a business the size of the one that owns Centre Court. Romulus is a much smaller company, so from a procurement perspective, it opens up lots more options that we weren't able to tap into. So we're currently retendering most of the services, very much looking at local to try and look on that supply chain management piece. We've already changed our waste provider, for example, to First Mile, who already do a significant amount in Wimbledon, which simply wasn't an option before. But as of, I think this week, next, we start with First Mile. So so that should reduce, although we haven't set any targets. And I must admit, Katie, your presentation kind of made me think, oh, we probably should set targets so that we can actually track it. Otherwise we won't know if what we're trying to do is going to be successful.
I'm happy to have a chat to you if you want to get in touch with me.
Yeah, that'll be helpful. Thank you.
A further discussion.
We are continuing with attempts at going paperless. We've introduced, for security, for example, we've introduced more iPad programs, so they use much less paper. A building like this can go through a huge amount of paper. I'm actually even trialing a new tablet. It's expensive, but it means you can just simply write notes, so you do away with notebooks completely. It might be early days to roll that out across the business, but we're giving it a go. The new landlord's also looking at mushroom farms for some of our disused areas, where we grow our mushrooms and sell them, give them to local restaurants. That's a new one which I've never heard of before, but the new landlord's really keen on doing something like that. And we're talking about roof gardens and greening for other areas of the business. So 2020 ended really well in terms of waste, and we're really proud of what we did, but the sale has opened up lots more options that either weren't available to us or a low priority. So there's lots and lots of different bits and pieces going on, but I think you're right. I think, Katie, we need to be able to measure how successful our projects are being.
Oh, that sounds fantastic, Simon. Really exciting for the years to come for Centre Court. Yeah, lots of different initiatives, which is great. Adam, did you want to go next? I know you had your hand raised.
Yes, yeah, that's fine. I'm not on mute either. So. That's brilliant to hear from you. It's so interesting how much stuff is actually going on. One of the things I'd like to just say about Centre Court is your zero waste shop is excellent, and it's really interesting to see all these zero waste shops sort of popping up all over London. We're Wimbledon School of English. We we have actually kind of moved most of our school paperless. I mean, that is the result of COVID, of course, and going online. So we have reduced significantly our paper usage. The thing that you were talking about targets, actually, we haven't measured it. And so we would need to look at that as well. So it was a really, really good presentation. Thank you very much. So we've got no, all sorts of things, no brochures, no sign-up sheets, nothing at all. We've taken out all of our paper, and we've stopped using books pretty much. So everything is either on a screen or on people's personal devices. Lots of challenges, of course, because I mean, we are getting students in now from all over the world. But we've had to, for example, COVID regulations, or at least our trade body says that we shouldn't be using, we shouldn't be doing washing up. Okay, so suddenly the amount of waste that we're producing, I mean, we've got a lot fewer students than normal, but the amount of waste that we're producing from coffee cups and coffee machines and this sort of thing actually has gone up. So there are plenty of challenges with COVID as well, of course. We do try and encourage people to use reusable masks, but obviously not everybody does. And getting people to stop using their cars, because obviously, because people don't want to be using public transport, then more people are driving to work. And they might only be 1 or 2 miles away, but actually having that conversation is a very difficult thing to do, I think. And so it would be quite interesting to see if we can share some ideas about how to actually have that conversation with people and try and push staff members to look at other ways of coming into work. That's most of what I have to say. It's not as good as you guys.
That's interesting, Adam. And do you see the issue with the travel conversation with staff, not students? Is that the focus on the staff making some sort of behavioural changes?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. That's good to know. I think we can definitely try and kind of help you there, and I think there are some initiatives going on, so we can definitely send you some resources on that. Diane, did you want to go next? Thanks, Adam. Diane Carey?
Yeah, sorry, I always, because when Diana's in the room, I always sort of answer in the wrong place. So in comparison to people that have spoken before, we're a very small business and we're in a serviced office. So we're very restricted on decisions that we can make that are outside of our control. But as a small business, we've been trying to go paperless for quite some time and been encouraging our clients, and COVID has really helped with that, because people don't have such easy access to us. They've been forced to use our online Dropbox system, which gives them access, safe access, and us too. And of course, when I've been looking at digital alternatives, that is not footprint free. And it's very interesting that as I've been looking into it, it's not as innocent as you think it is. And there are sort of places that provide cleaner and more eco ones. So I'm still learning on that one. And it's been a bit of an eye-opener to sort of think, oh, this is fine, I can just go paperless. It also has meant that we need double screens. I can't take information from a system and put it onto another system without a double screen. So that's another piece of equipment each. So there are other things going on there that you think you're doing really well. It's almost impossible to completely get rid of paper, but of course in my business and accountancy practice, we have to shred everything. And to my knowledge, Merton and Wandsworth do not recycle that, but Lewisham Borough does. So I think it will be coming. And that would be a good thing, because you know, we still can't, there's still going to be things that we need to shred. And when you're dealing with HMRC as we are, and they still do everything by post. So yes, that's why whenever anybody gets a phone call or an email pretending to be HMRC, it is almost definitely a scam, because they just don't deal with that kind of thing. So we have a notebook that you hairdry. Now I appreciate a hairdryer does use a bit of electricity, but it's very quick. So when you want to sort of write things out, you can easily just hairdry it and it disappears and you start again. It's something little, but again, it has to be made. Again, because we've been working from home, because shops have been closed, we've been relying on online and we've been relying on deliveries. Now you can sort of way up. One person delivering 100 things, is that better than 100 of all going to the same place? I don't know. There is an awful lot of boxes and things involved in these, and I can never get over just how much packaging is used unnecessarily. That's just me, perhaps. Obviously now we're doing everything online, meetings and so on, so that has cut down traffic and travel, and that must be quite a lot of us are, not getting in our cars or on public. I mean, at the moment, I must admit, I don't feel safe on getting public transport, Adam, and I can understand some of your staff. So if I can't walk there, I do get in my car. But I am walking a lot more than I've ever walked in my life. I don't know why I'm not skinny, really. So obviously we're saving fuel there, and there are some things to look at. And I think for me, in the future, I'd like to mix that up. I still do want to meet people in the flesh. So that's, and there's also what you were saying about throwaways. When you're meeting people for a coffee, very few places will accept your own cup at the moment, and that's still a bit of a bone of contention with me, I have to say. So what's the other thing? And just buying locally. I have really tried to buy from small businesses and buy locally where possible. I don't know how more eco-conscious that is, but I did look at, I'm much more, have had the time more to look into ingredients of things, looking into footprints. But you've always got that seesaw. Every time I think I find that, oh, this is bamboo, this is brilliant. Well, how far away did that bamboo come? So I'm forever sort of arm wrestling myself. So the reason I come to this meeting, and I've been to previous ones, is because I just want to learn from everybody else, and always good to have a bit of backup. So thank you.
Thanks, Diane. Just coming back to your point on the reusable coffee cups, there is, I think now, as we support Refill Merton as Sustainable Merton, we actually run it for Merton. And I know that there are a number of refill stations in Wimbledon Town Centre, and also there is going to be a new campaign, which is, I think if I'm correct, return to refill, to get people more confident in using their reusables again.
I think we were at that stage, and I sort of feel before COVID, we were in a great place. It wasn't weird turning up. I mean, I remember when I first used to turn up to Waitrose with my cup, I was accused of nicking the coffee. And I remember sort of explaining, no, I've got my receipt, And then it became, that's what Waitrose insisted on you doing. And lots of places did. Same with water coolers. There was lots of public places to fill your water up. Now, though, a lot of those have been closed at the moment. So I feel like COVID in one way has got us in a good direction, and in another way has bounced us back in other. So I think those things will start up again, but at the moment, a lot of businesses are not happy to let you reuse your cup.
Okay. Always try and ask the question then.
If you feel
confident enough.
I have found by asking or just guilting them.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Thank you.
Nice to hear from you. Angus, do you want to go next? Thank you. Hello.
Hi there. That's been a great presentation. Thanks a lot, Katie. I run a landscaping company, and I learned today actually that every time we send an email, we use 50 grams of carbon, which is quite a shocker. We have a lot of vehicles. We've got 25 vehicles in our fleet, and we're in the next 3 years, we've got a program to change them all to electric, and all the kit that we use for our maintenance, from strimmers to blowers, will be going electric as well, which gives us the added advantage that we can work early hours without waking lots of people up. But interestingly, my business, although we do have a carbon footprint, and like everyone, I think, in this meeting, that we're looking to reduce it, we actually do a lot of planting. And we've got a clever device whereby we can measure how much carbon we can take out of or how much carbon we can sequestrate. It's called an iTrees measure that for every plant we put in, we can say we've trapped this amount of carbon. So, and planting trees, of course, is very topical and very good. So we're ahead of the game because we can offset our carbon footprint by doing loads of planting. But if you ever need any help with planting or measures about how much good planting can do, we're working with Helen at Love Wimbledon and maybe with Eugenia. But this is all adding to solving the problem of getting to net zero carbon.
Angus, sorry, Angus, Simon at Centre Court.
Hi, Simon.
Can you put your contact details in the chat, please? I need to replace some trees.
Yes.
And
yeah,
you're the man that
absolutely.
I'm going to get to replace the trees.
I knew it'd be worth coming to this, Simon. Yeah, I will do.
Thank you. I've been desperately trying to get someone to replace the trees at the front of Centre Court, but I can't find anyone that will get back to me.
Okay, yeah, I'll put my details in.
Thank you.
Can I just ask everyone that we have here, would you all be okay to share your details with each other? Just the attendees, not the people that registered and didn't come. But if I have your permission in a chat that you say yes, then I will email you the contacts of everyone who attended. So this way we can network, share, and hopefully keep in touch and keep doing the good job.
Just adding to that as well, we do have a LinkedIn group. So I think Patricia and I will follow up with you all after the meeting and send some links and how we can connect going forward. So, yeah. Angus, did you have anything else to add? It sounds great what you're up to, and I'm glad you've got some business out of Simon. Seems.
No, it's a big challenge, and yes, I'm a tree hugger, and we like planting trees. And we've got this great method of it's called microforest, so we can plant forests in very small areas. We're saying the minimum size of tennis court. Amazing data from planting trees. And again, we can say, if you plant a tennis court size of trees over that lifetime, you can trap this amount of carbon, you can bring this amount of biodiversity in, you can trap this amount of particulate matter, you can improve the soil, you've got community value. So if anyone's got any patches of land that trees can be planted in, just let me know. But it's exciting times. We've got solutions to the challenge. It's good to know that there's a group that's driving this forward. So excited to be part of it.
Angus, are you in touch with Kelly Gunnell?
Yes, yeah, we're helping her put some. We're trying to get very low cost plants to help with the street planting, and we've sent her our advice. So we have a design team.
Great, thank you.
So yeah, all good. Thanks, Katie.
Thanks very much.
So I'm just aware, I think Heather and Pedro want to contribute as well. So shall I go to Heather? Do you want to go first? Oh, you're on mute, Heather.
Hi. I just wanted to talk about air travel because I think I'm run a really tiny business, which is actually based on green principles, which is reusable menstrual products. But what I do is I buy from around the world and I also sell around the world. So being such a small business, what I looked actually was at the inputs and outputs from the business. And one of the big areas I wanted to look at was air travel, because air is one of the most damaging elements that we can use. So the big thing that I've learned is actually to really talk to your suppliers about what you can do, because a lot of my suppliers have been really, really helpful in changing to use sea shipping and also land shipping as well. The one thing I've learned though is unfortunately that some countries have actually taken away sea and land shipping. So you have to actually look at what countries you're working with. And one of my decisions on the basis was to move some of my supplier base to Canada, actually, because Canada will still ship by sea and air, but the United States won't. So it's just really interesting, what the situation is with regard to countries. And the other thing I was going to say is you have to keep going with your suppliers, because I persuaded one supplier, for example, to send me a shipment which had a lot less plastic in it and was a much more sustainable way of shipping. And the next time I ordered from the supplier, I asked them to do the same, but unfortunately just they switched back at that point, because I don't think I emphasized it enough to them and didn't communicate it enough through their chain. So that's just what I was going to say, that you've just got to keep going with it as well, because it can be a little bit frustrating at times. So that's what I just wanted to say.
Lovely, thank you, Heather. That's great. And Pedro, do you want to go next? Just trying to get around everyone.
Of course, yeah, I can go next. Just raise the hand to get in the queue. Hi everyone, good to meet you. So I'm based in Wimbledon, of course, but I'm from Brazil originally, and I've been here for 15 years now. Now I've been networking locally since the social enterprise I work for shifted to a 4-day week in November, and basically, so we help alleviate poverty in developing nations by making donations or doing impact investment with the funds we gather from a management consultancy to help insurers innovate. Just to be short. Now, we've been using a tool called Doodle to reduce our emissions. So that's anyone can use that. It's like ecology. So basically, you can offset some emissions by planting trees. I mean, it doesn't really solve everything, but it helps at least. Now, the reason I'm here today is not because of that social enterprise. I just wanted to, get the case out there. But so I've been using my Fridays for good since November as someone who can help business engage with the B Corp movement and get certified. So Wimbledon-based companies like Abo & Cole and Green Element, which is an environmental consultancy that used to be based in the village, they are B Corps. Basically, it's a certification for business that they want to show to society, to stakeholders. They're in business for high ethical values, not just profit. So they prioritize people, planet, and prosperity. And I'd like to help more locally the charities, the Chamber of Commerce, Sustainable Merton as well. So I've put my offer there to help anyone would like more knowledge in this area. Happy to connect with other sustainability consultants as well. And
Dina's already interested in talking to you.
Yeah, and there's even a Chamber of Commerce in the southwest of England that is certifying as B Corp. So it's a great area, and happy to give any tips and knowledge, and happy to connect with you guys. Thanks very much. I'm done.
Cool. Thank you, Pedro. I know we're going to have a chat next week as well. So hopefully we can get you on board with helping the businesses potentially gain B Corp status if that's what they're interested in, or at least know a little bit more about it. So that's great. Thank you, Pedro. Does anyone else want to?
I'd like to.
Yeah, Lucy, go
yes,
ahead. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. Morning. So I'm from Delta Tray, and we're a sports and entertainment technology company. And yeah, we've done quite well in the past year. I know someone mentioned before about First Mile, so we now use First Mile for all our recycling. We also have changed all our office paper to eco-recycled paper, and have changed to LED lighting. We also have a strict lights off policy implemented that our staff have actually been pretty good at following. We also changed to a green energy company called Ørsted in the last couple of years, which has been really good. We created some bike spaces, and we have some shower facilities in our office, which encourages our staff to bike in instead of driving, especially as we're a sports company. That has been taken quite well because they like to get exercise in. We also, it might be interesting for anyone, we used to use Amazon vouchers on our staff's anniversary. Now we've replaced that, which obviously has a really high, Amazon has a very high carbon footprint, with a website called Treedom. And it's where we pay to plant trees for the staff. So on their anniversary, they are presented with a voucher, which they sign into the Treedom website, and they plant a tree virtually. And then the Treedom staff, we have one in the cacao forest, and a tree is planted there for them. So it's a nice way of them still receiving like a gift and something, but it's actually, actually having a good impact, rather than something like vouchers where people are just spending money and then they, have to pay for all the shipment. Yeah, we also so we've started with a energy company, but we haven't yet done like an environmental audit, which you were speaking about earlier. So that's something we definitely are aiming for this year. We have also run into a few issues with COVID, things like we had replaced all our use of paper towels with tea towels, and now we've had to return to single paper use towels. Or we would usually, we haven't had many meetings because we don't have many people in at the moment, but we would always use big packs of things, less packaging, less plastic, and now everything has to be individually wrapped for hygiene reasons. So that is one issue that we have run into this year with COVID. But yeah, that's about it from us.
Thank you very much. I think we have Ellie frozen.
Ellie, is it possible just to...
Oh, yes.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Sorry,
now.
I think my connection just went unstable. Sorry. So thank you very much, Lucy. It sounds like you've got lots of initiatives going on, and I'll definitely follow up with you just to share with everyone else so that we can share those sorts of initiatives that you've done at your company that you're working with. I'm just conscious of time. Is there anything that anyone wants to contribute kind of that is pressing and they really want to share? Otherwise, we'll just move on to kind of sharing the events which are coming up and letting you know when the next networking event is.
Ellie, could I just come in quickly?
Dan.
Here, just to say really quickly, hearing that, what a wide range of initiatives that are taking place from a very wide range of businesses, and what we would like to do is tell your stories, as Ellie has said. And you are the business leaders in this, and I take the point that COVID has made many people have to take a step backwards because of hygiene, but you are nevertheless the business leaders in this, and what we want to do is use you to champion the journey towards net zero, and hopefully other businesses will follow, because going back to Katie's presentation, there is a substantial way to go, but it is really great to hear the wide range of things that you're all doing that really truly contribute. So thank you, and we will be back in touch, as Ellie has said. So I'll go back. I think it's Patricia now, isn't it, that's wrapping us up? Yep.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Yeah, Patricia.
Yes, sorry. Yes, this is my first event on climate action. So I just wanted to really tell you, thank you very much. First of all, to Katie for the presentation. Thank you, obviously, to Simon and Centre Court for continuous support of that event. And as Ellie was saying,
sorry,
we will
Patricia,
share
we can't see your screen. I don't know. If
can you not? How about now?
No.
I can see it.
Yeah, I can see it.
Oh, I see. So
maybe it was me. Okay, fine.
Okay.
Sorry.
So yes, what I wanted to say, really just to quickly wrap it up, is that apart from teaming up with Sustainable Merton to do that event, we also do all kind of events like networking. The next one coming up is on 22nd of May. It's Take Time to Network. It's part of our Reach Out to Connect strategy to connect businesses within. It's not on a climate action, but obviously now the ecology is so important that it will probably go somewhere in between the lines. Also, in Merton Chambers, another event is going to be the first event in person. It's going to be in partnership with Bookfest. This is going to be our annual general meeting on the 10th of June, which is Thursday. And then later we will have another scheduled meeting for Merton's Business Network for Climate Action, and it's on 8th of July. I believe this is Thursday. We think it's going to be online, so let's hopefully we will be able to organize something. But for now, I think we should stay with online. Apart from that, I just wanted to also mention that we are a gateway for the government Kickstart scheme, which, if you don't know, it's a help to young people aged 16 to 24 to get back into employment. And this is the thing that Caroline is still leading on. So if you would be interested in getting someone, since you are business leaders, in getting someone on that scheme, so please just get in touch. Let me swap to that other slides as thank you. So these are little links that I actually should let me just try to put them now in the chat. However, as we said, we will be emailing you. I believe I'll go through the chat who agreed. If you haven't agreed yet, please, if you could let me know in the chat that you're happy to share, just with a simple yes, then I will email you the guest list, or the contact, well, not all the contact, but email address and the name and the surname of the person that attended today, including myself, Ellie and Diana, and obviously Simon and other people that and everyone basically. So I think that's it from me. I'm going to pass it on to Ellie. So thank you very much, everyone, for coming today.
Lovely. Thanks, Patricia. Yeah, just to follow up, I just want to kind of close up, really, just to say thank you, everyone, for attending today. It's been lovely to hear from Katie. Thank you, Katie, for all the information you've shared, and we'll be sharing those slides with you. And just lovely to hear, like, just within this hour, how much you businesses are doing and already making connections and sharing initiatives and steps you can take to be more sustainable. So that's really what the group's all about, just kind of connecting you all and sharing these ideas and sharing resources. So I hope you have found it useful coming today. And as I said, we'll follow up with you, and we're here to support you. So just drop us a line if you need any extra kind of help and support. So I think that's it from us. So thank you, everyone. And yeah, we'll be in touch.